Okay, I'm live. I hope I can be heard. Let me double check my volume here.
There was some kind of weird noise.
Yeah, that's working. Okay, I forgot to check that ahead of time. Um, yes, that's a pretty crazy title.
What's the title?
Something about the space aliens against the space aliens.
Fun. Well, I mean, it's not fun. Clearly,
Right, but I mean it's fun
we're
because
the collateral damage, like we.
right, we're the collateral damage, and that's and yet um, well, there's a whole lot to
Gonna
that. I mean,
advertise.
because of the harvest of souls, right? The collateral damage or
You gonna
any
advertise?
souls that are lost
Are you gonna advertise?
are all subject to it. Yeah. Yes, right. Let me see here. I got to advertise this. Thank you for reminding me. I'm always torn between saying a little bit of something first. So it just happened that way. Okay. So if you don't mind, hopefully maybe you can read some of what's on my screen there, and we'll try to get into some things in a minute or two. Uh, looks like I got the link on YouTube. It's nice to have it still working. Old School Dave, good evening. Gardener Earth Guy, hey there. Was just about to sleep and saw this. Oh, cool. I hope it's. Yeah, Dawn Possession, hi. Oh, sorry. So, I got to get on with trying to broadcast this. Let's see, what am I doing? Oh, yeah. Copy that. Okay, there. Okay, space aliens are against other space aliens. Luciferian rebellion is what I tagged onto it. And that came from, shown on the screen, is from Doe's writings in what became known as the article in USA Today from, I think it was May 19th. Does that sound right? No, June 19th was T's. I'm getting mixed up. May 27th, I think it was, of 1993. And so you can look it up. You can go to USA.
Heaven's Gate website.
Well, you go to the Heaven's Gate website, yeah, and go to the book, and you can see that. You can search there for USA Today, and you'll come up with that article. That whole, it's a big long piece of writings that Doe had us put into the USA Today. I had a crew work on that. Junodi was a part of that. She might have been the only one really working on it, probably with his helpers though, Liv Odie and Jan Odie, of course. But and they paid like $30,000 for it. And I think Doe told us in a meeting. He asked us about it. I don't know how he put it. But it was that it was just. I just thought of this that he did say something to think about it ahead of time, that they had enough money in there in the purser, in the purse, that they could afford to do that. And so that was, which everybody that I knew really liked hearing. Of course, like the whole, like seeing T and Doe's information before the general public in a way that it's going to be very direct. No beating around the bush, no propaganda. They don't got anything to gain by that. That's what happens with the media companies. That's what they do, pounding the beat of the drums. And Kathy and I keep on seeing how the one side that's, which I believe is what the evidence is of the two different, part of the evidence, there's a lot of evidence, but a part of the different alien groups working against each other. And when I say alien groups, I'm not talking about groups of aliens as much as individual aliens that they have their own agenda on what they've been doing. And they all know that they can capture human vehicles. It's probably not that hard. Like if they could pick them up on a spacecraft, basically they captured a human vehicle. And if they can give it a decent experience, even if it's a traumatic experience, but the person comes away with thinking that God, picked them up because of, they feel like they were blessed by it. And there's a lot of people that feel like that's happened to them. And I know that, you don't see them on an everyday basis unless you live in the communities where that's the norm, like San Francisco and Berkeley and L.A. and I don't know if it's the same thing in New York, but I'm sure New York and other cities, of course, Chicago, big time, I think, with their own spirituality and their people being very interested in the occult world, the invisibles, the scarnets, and so deceased humans, I guess, is modules. That's the way I think about them, or bubbles. And that's interesting. That just reminded me of this dream I had some time ago, to where I don't know if I even wrote it down at the time. But the dream was that I was at an old job that I had while I was in the group. and it was at the Tuscosa Country Club, I believe, in Amarillo, and that's the setting. And I was behind the line where I was the cook, one of the cooks, and 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 then the other side of the line were the waiters and waitresses, and the store, the dining room manager, and all kinds of things like that, because it was considered to be a top-notch restaurant in the country club. Anyway, so and it was kind of hobunk, I think, but they probably had good food because the chef that I learned under was, I think, a pretty good chef. But I'm not one to judge anyway. So anyway, but uh, so in the stream, I'm looking out over the line, and I could see the warmers, that are when you put your plate on top of the shelf there. Under the warmers, you could see that. I could see that actually, and I don't have that many dreams that are that kind of detail. But and then what I saw was bubbles, and I was thinking of them as different, like souls flying around. I don't know if they were souls or if they were spirits, but but I can't remember when I was working in that location that I really had that kind of a mindset about the people that I was working with, even though from T and Do's perspective, that wouldn't be an unusual mindset to have. I mean, in terms of knowing that there are people that, uh, well, that are physical, I guess, and that, as a bubble, and that bubble contains something. Now, T and Do, I don't think ever used that word to describe a soul. It was always, Doe would say a pocket or a pillowcase, and then later a container. And he liked that writing from that Bob Lazar talked about, that the writing in that yellow book that was allegedly from space aliens. Every time I say that, it's like, yeah, science fiction. And so Kathy and I were watching this thing today. What was that again? The Armageddon one? No, not Armageddon. The Apocalypse Z or something. Apocalypse Z. And yeah, I was having thoughts while I was watching it that humans can't guess what the next level has in store, unless they refer to the writings they provided to get some of the symbolism of those, and the perspectives of the things that would be happening in order to learn to recognize them. And but that these depictions of the apocalypse are like a training kind of thing. Not that I'm saying that there's no grand conspiracy of people sitting around thinking, how can we train everybody by Hollywood? I think it just happens also automatically. But however, it can also be something that the space aliens, who are souls that are outside of that are from before this civilization, that grew to have some status as beginner members in the next level at some point, uh, they do consciously know that what the next level is, um, uh, to the degree that they retained it um, after losing the vehicle that they had that had the experience physically. I don't know if the next level vehicle that they had um, creates a spirit. I don't know if it does that. human vehicles create a spirit when we think, when we act, what we become. It's becoming a type of organized data structure. I think, and Tiendo did compare things with computers a lot. I mean, enough. I don't mean a real lot, but just um, actually seldom, to be honest with you. But they would say seldom words about it, but the same concepts of, databases and um, memory. That these vehicles are similar. They're built the same way. The computer is, at least, which would be, I guess, best interpreted as the brain. Finch Show says greetings to Sawyer and Kathy and all. Rise Above says hello. Kind of late night. So the reason why, let me get back to where is that? Oh, there it is. Okay, so it looks like it can be read, although it's not very good, but I just wanted to go through some of the details with that. Well, see, that's the same thing. The evidence of what I was talking about before, though, regarding the way that we can be programmed by our, of course, the TV and everything can be like types of programming, or right that we are allowing or putting into motion taking place by choosing to listen to this and not to this and blah 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 blah. So we're actually, forming our own filters, I think, of what we don't want to put our mind to. So when a lot of people are being the subject of constant images and manipulation of ideas and restriction of thinking, and imagine, I don't know how that translates out to people when you want to corral people around, when you have that kind of an attitude, seemingly. But keep information hidden from people. Solutions to disease. That's a horrendous kind of thing to do, because for whatever the reason is, I always thought they were doing that because they wanted to keep a closer to what they think is a scientific experiment, so they have less things to account for the health of the person that receives their kind of medicine. So they don't want you to try other stuff, because then they won't have as clear of a pathway to success with that medicine, at least in the advertising of it. But and how that becomes a total disservice. And so to have somebody that wants to change that, but wants to use the best things from it before the Senate, confirmation committee, like Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is going through. I don't know if he's done with it or not. I haven't watched the whole thing.
I think he has one more day. Today was the first day. I think I could be wrong about that.
He has one more day. To see the way they were talking to him was really showing that these are some individuals that have this program in their heads that they need to step two, showing where their support lies, even if they don't think about it that way. They're dedicated to bringing this person down that was so hated by a lot of the foundations of the medical establishment. I don't know how else to say it. The ones that do all kinds of great things. I don't take that anything away from. I'm not capable really of that. But to be that becomes a religion, to where it says this is the only way you can do it. That's where it becomes wrong. Because with the next level, there is one way to do it. There is only one way to do it. That's true. To graduate, you have to basically please your older member the whole time, and they're not like sitting there, oh, please me, please me. That's kind of lower thinking, but they just know that if you don't do that, then you're not going to be stimulating what can come to you. By doing that. That's my opinion anyway. Um, so, well, maybe I could just read this little section. Am I allowed to do that? I didn't ask anybody that question. I'm kind of like being sarcastic now. But I guess that does bring up a little funny thing that happened. What the heck, right? Um, but I want to preface this before I talk about it, and that is that I don't uh, I I don't think of Mark and Sarah as evil any more than I am evil. Everybody's got their things. I mean, it's just not my decision for that. But using the word evil is kind of stupid, but it can look that way because of talking about the things that we sometimes talk about because we're being sued by Mark and Sarah, and the few times that we have talked about that, um, there is a certain amount of passion, of course, with our point of views, and I mean, can you imagine Kathy's perspective of being, uh, you know, with me for the first time, not even a year, and all of a sudden she's being sued because maybe she was sitting at a time when I was playing one of the audio tapes, and so all of a sudden she's now a target on the lawsuit. So that's very unfair things. They've done things that very. I'm not going to say the same thing again because Trump does that all the time. Sometimes he drives me crazy with it. Very fair, very fair. I'm not going to say that.
The story.
Not fair. So the story is that we were driving around this neighborhood, and because we were delivering food.
Not just because we drive around random.
Right, we deliver food as are trying to make ends meet, and we got to this road that said Mark, and we took a right down the road and went down a little bit.
We
Did we
actually
make our
delivered.
delivery right
Yeah, we
there?
did the delivery.
Yeah, we delivered right there, and then we kept on driving straight down that road, same direction, and we came up with a it was a stop sign, and it
We
said
turned onto another road, and it doesn't really matter, but
it
yeah,
was
we came.
Sarah. It was the perpendicular road to Mark. Mark and Sarah was an intersection.
Yeah,
That's what I was saying.
yeah.
Okay, so and then, so together with Mark and Sarah on the and then the stop sign beneath it, it
That was it. It was just funny.
that was funny to us. Not that I don't think the next level gave that to us, but
I don't know how
maybe
many
they would have been
streets are
saying
named
stop
Mark
with
and
Mark and Sarah,
Sarah. Yeah, it was just
or
weird.
stop with Mark and Sarah. Stop talking about them.
Yeah.
And now I'm talking about them, so that wouldn't be a good thing. Anyway, but I want to be able to talk about them because I'm not like I started to say I'm not feeling
Well,
you
you
know
want to be able to read something from Doe without feeling
yeah
like it's going to be used against you in a lawsuit.
right. Right. To me, it's almost absurd that this could be used in a lawsuit, and I know that it's already got Doe's common copyright on it. It's even still available to see, thank goodness, on the website. And so I know that, but at the same time, I'm being sued for this kind of a thing of what I put up to the public. That was from their mouths and ears, and mouths, mouths and fingers, writings. Anyway, so but this little part of uh, I was getting down to the part where it said, I'm going to read it for those that can't read this. These Luciferian space races are the humans' greatest enemy. They hold humans in unknown slavery, only to fulfill their own needs. They cannot create, though they develop races and biological containers through genetic manipulation and hybridization. They even try to make deals with human governments to permit them, the Luciferians, to engage in biological experimentation through abductions in exchange for technically advanced modes of travel, though they seldom follow through, for they don't want the humans in the civilization to grow to be another element of competition. They war among themselves over the spoils of this planet and use religion and increased sexual behavior to keep humans drugged and ignorant in darkness while thinking they are in God's keeping. I'm going to go a little bit more, but I've got to move it up. Okay, I don't know how long it'll take for you to get it. Updating the screen. So I'll go to the chat room. Which I never pulled out actually. I guess I should do that now. And also live chat. Okay. So I'm going to go on and read a little bit more. Okay. Doe continues to write, these Luciferians see to it, through the social norm, the largest Luciferian cult, in quotes, there is, that man continues to not avail himself of the possibility of advancing beyond human. Many things have become the accepted norm, but that doesn't make them right. Just as the biological body is the container for the soul is the container for mind. Mind translates into the brain as information, knowledge. Information is available to humans from only two sources, the mind of the Luciferians or the mind of the kingdom of God. The mind of the Luciferians yields misinformation, promoting the behavior and concepts of this world. The mind from the true kingdom of God yields true information, though the Luciferians and their servants would reverse this interpretation. As we change in the progression of overcoming humanness, the percentages change of which mind occupies our soul. Truth increases as misinformation decreases. If we revert back to humanness, the process reverses. The truth is aborted as the soul becomes more filled with mammalian mind. The truth can even be taken from us if we abuse it. When our eye becomes single, our soul is filled only with mind or spirit from the true kingdom of God, it becomes pure or holy mind. One more little paragraph. The true kingdom of God's design permits the presence of a Luciferian element during a human civilization as a catalyst for growth. Without it, we would have no choices. Our free will could not be exercised. Our right choices find us in alignment to recognize the truth when it is offered. Wow, that's a powerful last statement there. Our right choices find us in alignment to recognize the truth when it is offered. And then when they leave, then their minds go with them. Unless there's still a truth teller living by the behaviors and ways of the next level. In other words, one of them, a member of their crew. And I don't know if that means, I mean, I've already seen the evidence in my mind of departure of that mind that this vehicle was once a greater house of, I think, might be one way to say it. But, it's But what I was trying to get at was that what I just read to some people, uh, they're not going to know what it's talking about. Of course, they don't know the context, and if you don't know the keywords, what they are referring to, it can that's totally understandable, of course. And so it becomes a matter of their choice on whether to look at something again or just disqualify it right away, and try to put it out of their minds. Maybe it's not hard to put out of their minds. Maybe it's easy because it sounds so foolish and silly and whatever, and science fictiony, talking and religious, talking about the kingdom of God and the Luciferians and humanness and mammalian minds and Holy Spirit, holy mind actually. It's like we've been also the subject of programming. We've been so barraged by the Christian history, and before that, or during that, the Judaic history and the Islamic history is part of that too, and and of course the other religions show the evidence of the same things happening with Buddhism and Hinduism to the degrees that I've examined them, and that they all like more mutate, if you I don't know how you put it, but into an alternate that makes belief in that alternate the objective, and that everybody can do that, and so it becomes a foundation of a organization, right? That who knows can be trading on the stock market. For all I know. I mean, I don't know if the Vatican trades on the stock market, but uh, I wouldn't be. I would believe they do, or some markets somewhere. But I'm not saying those are bad choices, but uh, that if somebody isn't prepared to know how the real deal thinks when they talk, then there's not much chance probably that if they're when they're in a human vehicle uh, and around a time when older member or more are operating through a human vehicle, another human vehicle like your own, then the things that they'll be saying aren't going to make sense necessarily, or they might make a little sense, but it's all kind of in degrees of how much sense stimulates desire to know more, right? And so those are some of the choices I think that we each make that kind of sends us in a certain direction or not. And so I think a seeker is somebody that you know wants to look in a lot of places and rightfully so. But I think we can also get kind of glued to the search.
That's funny. I was just watching a Shark Tank short, and the woman had this glue that she put on her shoulder to hold her strap in place. Anyway, there was glue in the short that I was watching, and you just said the word glue, and I just thought that
Oh,
was
I see.
interesting.
Hmm. Okay.
Sorry.
That's cool. That's fun to hear. I like word associations. Sometimes it seems like coincidence, and sometimes it seems like, wow, I don't know. But of course, it could be either. You could have a spirit that is bringing that to our attention where we might not think of it.
What, glue?
Yeah, like there's another word I used that you didn't see any indication of that in there.
Anyway.
Yeah, so why does my screen start with misinformation in a lowercase? I think I ended on a. I gotta check something here quick.
I only have 30 more minutes I'm allowed to eat.
Oh yeah, I want you to make me something.
I'm not making nothing. I'm having full cereal.
I guess I did enough of that there. So let me go back to the top here, because what I was actually thinking about. Where it says these Luciferian space races are the greatest enemy, and because of how they hold people in slavery, and well, I'm not seeing that part that I wanted to talk about in the first place.
Isn't the USA Today thing?
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at.
Oh, right. That is a lot of document.
Yeah, it is a lot of document.
No, we don't have any other oat milk besides this.
Spoils. Uh, oh, they right. It's right here in the beginning here. So I'm gonna try to highlight it. Maybe it'll highlight it. Well, right. So the space aliens are um, have different agendas, and Doe talked about that in another tape regarding Ross Perot's agenda and how that was like conflicting. And he talked about how that there were some that were unhappy with what Lucifer had got them into, but when they sided with Lucifer, and so they, in their own way, Doe felt might have been trying to improve the human kingdom, or please the chief of chiefs, and so in that way, the next level, you know, may or may not choose to use them. Probably does choose to use them in some way, shape, or form, uh, to some benefit that wouldn't be achieved by, working with the other space alien groups in particular. In other words, I don't know how much they're actually each individual that is we're talking about here. How much they influence and what they don't influence. As much. I don't know if there's any way of how do you keep somebody? Let's say somebody's in a spacecraft and they can be right, by the uh, right outside the door of somebody, a human. Okay, if they want, they can be hovering there. Nobody can see them. I'm just imagining this. Of course, is huh? Yeah, it could be true. They could be. Yeah, we can only see so much in the light spectrum, and we don't know what they can do to make it so that it's just not there for us. And I don't know if you would see something blank. Like let's say it was against an apartment building with lots of different lights. If you would see like something was blocking the light going through, I don't know how that would work exactly. But uh, the thing is that they could be actually trying to give somebody in that apartment building ideas, thoughts, or I don't know if they can, as some of the reports say, they can go through the windows or they can pull the soul of that person, soul or spirit being interchangeable kind of word at that point, uh, out of the out of their body enough, to have them like astral traveling and bring them on board the spacecraft. And I don't know. I guess they could. And then they go back thinking that their body was there, and then other times maybe they take the body too. I've heard stories that they floated the body right outside the door, or actually through the roof of the building. In some cases, was talked about. Which I don't know. Some of this is going to be construed differently by the brains of those people that had the experiences. And it's going to probably be like an acid trip in some ways. To have our reality kind of like the bubble being popped. That you could have physical beings standing right next to you with a spacecraft in the field. And it's one thing to think about it, and it's another thing to what actually happens when you're in that if you're in that kind of a circumstance. But what are they interested in? Well, that's one thing that I believe the space aliens have in common. They're interested in the same kind of things. Getting off this planet. Finding elements that can give them power supply. That can do some of the things that the power supply that they had with that spacecraft could do. Which might include zero gravity and all kinds of things. And of course, the humans want to be able to take apart their spacecrafts. And you know how many cars there are in the world, right? Well, you could have that many spacecrafts, I imagine. So you could probably, the more you have, the more things you're going to have to try to reverse engineer and stuff. But like if it's a really lightweight metal that's really strong. Anyway, so right. So one of the ways of doing that is religion, and and sexual behavior, of course, is listed here also as increased sexual behavior. So it's like when you're preoccupied with sex all the time, you know. I mean, would that would be like, you know, because this it's a normal function of human vehicles, and you know, yes, there probably is truth to the more you give away your seed, the less of a certain kind of energy that you have. That's, you know, but then there's another argument that if you don't use it, you lose it. You know, so you lose like human vitality, which I think there's some truth to. It's like continuing on to have testosterone, because if your body thinks that it's still in reproductive mode, then it's gonna be trying to be able to support, uh, you know, well, not that the guy has to do much to support. Thanks. Thanks to the Yanks. My grandmother would say. And she was thinking of the Yanks as being the Americans, actually.
Well, but Northerners.
I don't know if she thought of them
Say
that way.
Southerners were Yanks.
She immigrated from Austria in the 19. Let's see, my mother was born in 1927, and she was probably beneath 20 when she got pregnant. So that would be. I don't know, but anyway, she had the background of um, Vienna. I forgot why I was going to talk about that. I was just making some little connection there that is worthless, probably. So I should stick to what's in these writings from Doe. And but there's a lot in this that is hidden. I mean, it may sound like we understand it, but it can be a lot more meaningful relative to what's happening in the world around us. And especially since these writings were made to where a lot of this kind of terminology and everything is considered to be uh, pretty ordinary to think about. Hybridization, genetic manipulation, biological experimentation, biological containers, and now they're called EBE. Well, then they were called EBEs at that one point, and that they develop, and they're from different races. So they develop different kinds of biological containers. And what are the things that humans most in common that they're doing with their money and stuff? It's the sciences. It's the development of industry and sciences, and in order to, I mean, not the sciences as a theory, which that's part of the. To me, that's like the church part of it. You know, the worship of that which brought the information to them, which you know, that can have some relevance to it, I guess, because the next level provides the initial ideas to take certain steps, like electricity, for example, was one step that I believe Doe talked about a little bit. But but then humans, you know, as we do, they do um, uh, keep on exploring different things, you know, looking at different things, trying to do different things, and that's all good because that's how we learn. There you go with the seek again. You know, if you're not really motivated to find something, you're not knocking any doors. That's another thing that is part of that, I think. And and looking you shall, seeking you shall find, knocking the door shall be open to you, asking you shall receive. So those kind of three things are like three ways the next level is describing of how we can approach everything in life. Uh, and of course, we can make that into a teaching kind of thing where, and then have a seminar about it, and or we can just give it to people to use, those teachings to use, and in all the ways that they hope that it will be used, because that would be spreading the seeds for the future plantings that we then are like seed, blowing around seeds, because each little blip on their computer screen that says, hey, this person's a little thirsty. We don't know what it is necessarily, but then they can zero down to it probably, and see what kind of things that stimulated this person's desire for change, desire for something better. Because if they're asking for human things, they might not choose to give them something, but they might. Who knows? But maybe there's a prize for just getting their attention. Because we do have to get the next level of attention. They don't want to think that they're imposing on us. They don't want to impose anything on us. They know what they got. It's like you got $1 billion, and they know that they can give you $1 billion right on the spot. But they want you to see that the dollar that they gave you was something about it that was very special. And so you want another one. My stupid analogies. But so they already know that they have a lot more than we do. And it may be that big, or bigger, for all I know. But of course, if you're not of the kind of mind that believes what I believe, because of what I became and can experienced, and to date, well, I don't know. I shouldn't be talking about myself so much because I'm running around in circles. But
So the Trump aliens factions are trying to clean up the Biden alien factions.
well, yeah, you might look at it that way. It seems to be a pretty stark division point. I mean, even though those space aliens, they're going to be working with everybody in that. Well, all the higher ups, all the ones that get the most public attention. They're I think, gonna be the ones that the space aliens are trying to give the most impetus. No, impetus. I don't know if that's the word for it. The most sense of connectedness, maybe. Of a higher purpose, and from God, even, in their minds, because they're not coming as space aliens. I don't think they physically appear to them. Um,
But they influence them.
I could be wrong about that, of course, but yeah, they influence them. I'm not sure exactly how, except by the way their minds have a certain amount of strength, and have a certain amount of characteristics of gentleness, and so that it's I believe it's probably got some soothing to it of I don't know, soothing of the soul kind of thing. Uh, got a purpose. It's a it's a and I believe that that part of the government. Um, I don't think, uh, and this other space alien um, group are thinking that, right, probably in the Trump camp, and I see more what I believe uh, next level uh, ways and information uh, in the talkings of the ones that have taken a stand with Trump, and like Bobby Kennedy, for example, and to be raked over the coals the way he was on the Senate hearing, and be treated the way he's been treated all along is I'm I'm real surprised he's still alive. I don't know. I don't know how that works. I mean, I was surprised that Obama lasted. But a lot of things I don't really know because we also don't know who the next level could be protecting. If they've got somebody that they want uh, to be, a teacher to humans, and questioning their motives and the other direction with all the things that have happened. It really does seem to be that that same force, that same space alien group that really got a hold of people in the late 90s. And the evidence of that is through those documents that were put out by the Committee for the Rebuilding of America's Defenses. No, that was the name of the document, I think, was Rebuilding America's Defenses. But it was the Committee for the something of America. I forgot now. But, that a number of the bigwigs in the Bush administration signed on to, and Bush didn't sign on to it, which was created in 1997. So that was before the second George W. Bush, the first term of the George W. Bush presidency. So, and that called for a two-front war and a military that could support a two-front war, and for that they would need an event like Pearl Harbor in order to get the public support. So they're telling you right off the bat what they plan to do. And then we saw that manifest where they were fighting Afghanistan and Iraq. And So I mean, and so even the election of Al Gore was ruled by the Supreme Court, told the Florida Supreme Court not to recount that county's uh, ballots again, even though the Florida Supreme Court had ruled to do it. So the Supreme Court came in there and said, nope, Florida, you can't have the sovereign rights in your election to be the final say. So it gave the Florida Supreme Court, in my opinion, the permission to say, oh, well, the Supreme Court said that we didn't have, whatever the reason was, I don't know how the headlines were written, uh, that we could accept the results that we've got already that made Bush win. But that didn't stop that space alien group. There might be more than two. I don't know how many there might be. Um, but one of them certainly wants to use, at least as a tactic, this idea that humans can save the planet. One little person at a time by recycling. And of course, it makes sense that if you got a big problem with something, if everybody gets on board, you can do a lot towards that problem. Anyway, I mean, so what other evidence is there of space aliens working against space aliens? Well, you're not going to see, you know that the next level aren't space aliens because they've got no mammalian behavior in them. They don't have any gender. They don't have any, they don't talk in terms of gender, in terms of one another. And they're totally selfless. They have no self. All they want to do is do tasks for their older members. And they get all their joy from that. And that's not really, that's not a fantasy, in my opinion. But I can see how people would think it is, because it sounds like the religious teachings, right? So you give your all, so that what that becomes in the religion is, I talk about the words all the time, whether we're, or I accept that I've been saved. I accept that I have the mind of God in me. I accept that I'm a part of this Godhead, or this universal mind, or this cosmic consciousness, and it's all got aspects of truth to it, I suppose, in the tiny morsels, though, but it's like, what are you going to compare molecules with boulders, and I don't know, it's like mountains in scope. So, and it's only facets of what we're calling God that we can even conceive of, because we really don't have the capacity to think like members of the next level, except in the ways that we've been taught, which Jesus introduced a big program for, and then Tiendo introduced the entire program, totally straightforwardly, but trying to stay within the vernacular of the different religions and New Agey thinking. And I'm not down on New Agey thinking. It's got as many things that are good and inaccurate about it, as anything else. With the general view of, I found it. I found my niche. I found my niche. This is my belief. And so that becomes their heaven. Their heaven, their heaven. So that when the next level comes down to it, they can see all the souls that were choosing this direction, this direction, this direction, or that direction. Or I don't know how many different categories there are. Because it's not a matter of, fitting like a computer profile of everybody's life, I think, summed up in, they drank so many Starbucks coffees. I know that's a stupid way of saying it, but they don't have that kind of detail. But they might be able to measure it and how much caffeine you had of that certain bean, right? I don't know how that would work. See, it can get into all kinds of, and we can basically tie ourselves in knots with analysis of things. And sometimes it's hopefully we can desire to get out of those loops. And I don't want to be in a loop either, because I could get in a loop with T and O's information, thinking that this is the only way you can think about it. That's one of the, even though to think about it the way that they express it, if I started to edit it, then so that let's say there's a couple points being made, and one I want to talk about, and the other one I don't want to talk about, and basically would choose to only use the words that I want to talk about. Well, to me that's a way of the lower forces distorting the picture, because I want to keep at least a paragraph together. They put things in paragraphs. So, and they did say that in the common law copyright, you can use parts of it, or the entirety, just as long as you didn't change the content or add to the content. Now, somebody could say, "Well, you're adding to the content, Sawyer, because you're talking about it," and that's fine if they want to think that way. And I've been accused of that actually, so it's not like I'm making something up. But um, uh, I mean, that's a given that people are going to talk about it that have the experience, especially, and uh, and that can happen, to whether they have the experience or not, in this physical lifetime, because we have their information, so we can actually have more and more opportunities to absorb more and more of their mind. It's all in degrees. There isn't any like we're not the ones that talk about where the failure is and where you know where the percentages are so low of people's choices to where they're not going to begin to ask questions about this or that because they don't want to ask questions about other things that would get them to be able to ask questions about this and that because of where their minds are. And that's some of the benefits of, well, the way the next level grows the garden. So if it's time for certain plants to lose their vehicles, uh, that's the time, and that's going to happen. And the next level is going to save any of the spirits with those vehicles for a potential future. But not everybody's going to be saved. So if we do want to become somebody, at least by this teachings that I believe came from T&O, then we're going to have to appeal to them. We're going to have to get their attention. And the only way we can get, well, I shouldn't say the only way, but perhaps the biggest way to get their attention is to learn about who we want to get the attention of, to see what's on their mind, and see if it appeals to us, and then grow it to whatever degree we choose to grow it. That's to me the task, and that's going to happen in different ways, different stages, ups and downs. Life is part of it, and they know who's doing it and who's not, because it's not a matter of saying becoming like a club member and saying, "Oh, I now believe in TNO. I've got a T-shirt that says so," and then except that can certainly be something that is an automatic way of stimulating conversation for the few people that might ask about it, or maybe a lot of people would ask about it at some point. You never can tell what's going to happen in the near future. The next level's not done yet. And so in that way, there's uh, there's more to look forward to. Positives that come out of negatives. You know, it's so uh, I don't know. I could be wrong about this, but it's so telling to me uh, when people talk about something that happened in the past that they fear happening again, and they don't recognize that, or they get overcome by the fear of what happened again, happening in the future, or happening right now, to where it can be something that, I don't know, a lot of people are freaking out by what they think is happening because of what the media is telling people is happening with this new Trump administration. And I'm thankful to hear that if the Trump administration said things in certain ways that people became fearful of because of, that they make changes quickly so that people aren't fearful, because nobody's going to benefit, regardless of the things that Trump is doing that are right or wrong by the next level's perspective. Uh, the same way as the Biden and Harris administration was, pleasing or not to the next level's perspective. Uh, we can't exactly judge that, but we can, I think, judge the differences of operation, the differences of the way things are done changing. And in other words, if you actually search down, I was talking about before how a lot of this started in the late '90s, in my opinion, with the rebuilding of America defenses document and things in 1997. Which to me, when I found out about that after I started studying history in 2001, after the event in New York City and elsewhere, but I came upon these documents and they basically described. I already talked about it, a two-front war and an event like Pearl Harbor, and here we are, you know, witnessing these things kind of coming to pass, and uh, and then tying it to prophecy, and the red horse, which would be the terrorist horse, the war horse that goes after the terrorists all around the planet, the two front war. It's like the and then you see how the culture keeps on like adjusting to this. And what's the culture? It's, in my opinion, it's the talk, the words used to describe things. So you start to see more next level terms coming into the environments, and other people then, Heaven's Gate became used by a lot of different people. Funeral homes named that, and old bands, and I don't know if any band has that exact name, but they might. But uh, and then other words associated into the society, and to where you could gravitate to it. And I'm not saying that there's not a certain an interest in it, but it can become something that it never was in our minds, and we can think we're worshiping it, by some standard, and the next level might be thinking that we're dragging our feet. I don't know, and not that they think badly of people, but they're interested in helping us be the best we can be, and they know that the best we can be is going to be when we're trying to draw on their minds according to everything that they left behind for us to examine. And so so you're going to see, but the different space alien groups are going to have common characteristics. Uh, you know, so the overviews, but I think somebody took a big hit with when Trump came into power the first time, and now that he's in power again, and he reversed the payments to the climate accords, the Paris Climate Accords, and so he wasn't paying on that anymore. And and I think he stopped paying to the WHO, which I heard the other day that he did you hear any updates of that? That he supposedly was gonna stop the payments to the WHO, but decided to not stop them. And actually, I don't think that's a bad idea. I guess because of probably all the root systems that have been developed by the WHO throughout the world. Maybe that can be helpful to populations. But then I can hear the space aliens' thoughts with, oh yeah, we could get, you know, more vehicles for more genetic experimentation. And they don't think that way. If anybody was going to talk about, the return of some terrible figure from the past, we know about the stories of the testing of children medically and mentally, I guess, and other ways, forced testing on children, and twins and things. And we know of other experiments. So these thoughts, the reason why humans would have these thoughts is because the space alien souls. Now remember, the space alien soul, they know these things are realities. To take over human vehicles is what they were taught to do by taking over their own human vehicle at the time when they were in a classroom that was headed towards graduation into membership of the next level. So, so that's where humans get the ideas if the next level doesn't directly give an idea to humans because they want them to start thinking about and having more technology in order to, you know, for better communications and for all the things that the next level can benefit from, video photography and, the things that Tiendo used to get their information out. Videos, audios, and the written word, websites. That had to grow to be able to be developed. And it doesn't mean that the next level agrees with everything that's being done on those things. They probably don't agree with a lot of it. But they know it's just part of the chatter. It's like having children and knowing that when they go out to play, they're going to just have some of them are going to be more violent than others, and some of them are, going to throw a stick at somebody or a rock at somebody and get a, chill from it. And other ones are going to, going to build sand castles, whatever they want to do. So that's what humans are doing, I think. Not that there's no value to those things. There are values to a lot of things. I don't know if we can say that anything is not of some value, potentially. But 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 religion is the biggest spoiler. And That's because religions are the distortion of the truth. Whenever it came in a package, whether that was a blob that we can't see in the atmosphere that was providing the information to Moses to help him adapt to it, some kind of interface program, because next level information is, I mean, the reality of the next level, their mind, the way they think. They don't think like humans. They don't have the same priority. Humans have basically a self preservation priority. So they don't make decisions based on preservation of self only, or building up of self would be another form of it, right? They don't want to build themselves up into something that other people are going to worship. They only want to please their older members. So when you see people worshiping humans, they're actually worshiping. Well, I don't think it's really right to say it that kind of a definitive way, but they're they're worshiping, I guess, a space alien soul or more, one or more. Worship meaning actually to work for. That was the definition I believe Doe gave for that word, worship, which became the religious word that was meaningless, almost meaningless. I'm not going to say meaningless, because maybe there is some fragment of benefit to even people, worshiping in a way that, I don't mean fragment of benefit, even a small help from the next level can be a big help to somebody in their lives if they're in the religion. I'm not saying that the religions are bad. I'm saying that to get stuck in their thinking is a problem. Keeping that individual from a problem in the context of keeping that individual from uh, excelling beyond the limitations in that religious teaching, even though there are ways that's twisted by the lower forces. But anyway, um, and so that's why you can't, if there's people out there that get a hold of the T&O information and then decide they're going to go tell everybody what for, that's not a next level way. Uh, but could it be a positive? Well, sure, it could end up being a positive because it's kind of hard to. I mean, I don't want to ever say to anybody what they should or shouldn't do. But there are extremes, and so if you really want to do that, then ask T and O if this is an extreme way of trying to communicate to somebody. To you know, because you're not getting any like the way that the Christians teach, which is the human way. That the more people you have joining into your religion, the more valid you are, the more important you are, the more real you are, the more whatever you interpret that as. And that happens to people all the time, I believe. And I think I've felt enough of it with some of my influences to know that you can get pleased with yourself. You can be content with this world. Um, and I'm not someone that was ever thought of myself as being discontent with this world. I don't know what I'm more and more discontent with this world the way it's going with the climate of lies and deceit. You know, but I hate all that and the manipulations that are going on, which we can also think are greater than they are. I think, and that can be another distraction. because there's some things that it's like people want to go in that direction. They're not being actually forced to go in that direction. They literally like that thinking, like that behavior and way, feel like there's a value to it. Or, it's we 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 need to. They would say we need to save the people in Ukraine. Why don't they deserve to be saved? We need to help the homeless in Mexico. I'm not saying that that's what I think. I don't think it's that generalized. And we can. I think we can. If like I was thinking the other day that instead of you know Mexico is talking about having some kind of a camp there. So, okay, build a camp and make it so that you have regular sewage removal and you have good tents that can keep out the bugs and the dust and give them electricity if you can do it and drink clean water and food. And it wouldn't be that expensive. And let the people, have access to some place to wait to apply to citizenship. I don't know that that would be a terrible thing. I lived outdoors in tents, and it was very organized, in good ways. The people were, you didn't have people, trying to rape somebody in the camp, and that could be a terrible thing then, right? But, you have that happening in the cities. And so, maybe there will be refugees in it, but I wouldn't want to put them in Guantanamo. Whoever had that idea to me is just to have a place that's offshore, that you're in control of. Yeah, that sounds like, I don't know, that sounds like some of the other space alien group rubbing off. I say, I don't know where to draw the lines, because like I said, they have common characteristics. And I think uh, having order was the way that T&O talked about it. That Lucifer uh, liked law and order. The space aliens like law and order. So they're gonna, that's why we see their systems. And probably when you ever see reforms happening, that's probably the next level's influence, trying to even though in both circumstances for the souls in those systems, they can still be getting their best growth. That doesn't mean they deserve that, but if they're experiencing it, there's something to be gained from it. I know when I was taken to jail, it wasn't a big deal. When I was deported and I was in jail for 4 days or something like that, I don't know, maybe it was a week. It did seem like maybe it was a week. And then when I was taken to the border by bus, and I didn't have a sense that I just knew I was out of my control, and so I wanted to I just had to try to go with it and see what would happen, and they let me go, and there wasn't anything bad after that, except there were difficulties that happened when my truck broke down and stuff, and because of those difficulties, though, there were some people on the street that were Christians, and they said, well, maybe I can help you fix the truck. And you can stay in my place with the other people that were sharing this house and had different Christian, beliefs. And that individual did fix my truck. And I left Yakima, Washington with the same $50 I arrived with. That's what I had left coming across the border. But, one step at a time, things kind of worked out. And so, I mean, but it does teach you how to live on very little. And you're not thinking about anything else than really. Well, I think I'm getting kind of rambling here. So I think I'm about done. I'm going to just go to the chat room and see if there's anything happening there. Any kind of questions. So Ryan Voorhees just said he completed 35 laps around the sun today. Wow. That's amazing. You must be flying high. I don't know how long that would take, depending on your speed. Okay, folks, I think I'm out of here. Good night, folks.